Good day, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to moderate or to assist in moderating this forum debate this afternoon. As you can see, New York, we are at the cusp of November election, which is taking place November 2nd. So it's very important that we have some kind of conversation, especially for those candidates that are running in our local constituency here in the 25th district. So with that said, New York Political Coalition is an organization that came into being as a way to promote democracy. We want to address the issue of voter apathy, which is a threat, not just to public safety, but to our prosperity and our future. So this conversation is very important. As a candidate that ran in recent primary election this past June in the 21st district here in Queens, I am very much conversant about how important, grassroots activism and representation can be, so that anyone that wants to represent a constituency must understand the issues. And I believe that those of you who want to represent the 25th district are vast in what's going on there, and therefore we'll be able to share with our general public the things that can better enhance the election, so that voters can make up their mind based on who will be the best person to represent the district. So we have today 2 candidates out of 3 who are vying to represent the 25th Council District, representing the neighborhoods of Jackson Heights and Elmhurst. And I have here with us Fatima Baryab. Fatima, you're welcome.
Hi, thank you.
Also, we have with us Mr. Suraj Jaswal. You're welcome, Suraj. So the way we'll do it is for just a little housekeeping. We will pose the same question to each of the candidates. So, and let's say, Fatima, you can start, and then Mr. Suraj will respond to the same question. So with that said, I would be remiss if I also failed to appreciate one of our members, Olivia Natango. Olivia, I'm sure you are also ready, because we have to make sure that this forum helps everyone that is watching to understand what is going on, because the district, 25th district, is the microcosm of the world. In fact, it's the most ethnically diverse community in the whole of the United States, if not the world. So that is one of the reasons why we are doing this. And as our president, Dr. Eunice said, we are ready to roll. So having said that, I think we should get on, Ms. President. Do you have anything to say before I start off with the question?
I just have my questions for each of the candidates. So that's basically, what I want to, I want to ask my own questions as well. Okay. So, yeah, so we can go on with the questions.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, because of time. Yeah.
So go ahead,
Okay.
So the first question goes to Fatima, and then Mr. Suraj.
Okay. So I have a question, just my first question that I want to ask each of the candidates, right? So one, I just want to know, Fatima, what is your take in terms of allowing women to do prostitution, in terms of making it legal? Please, what is your take? Can you tell us what is your take on that?
Yeah, sure. I believe that, we live in a free country. People have the right to choose what they want to do, especially women. But if it comes down to the legalization of prostitution, as a woman myself, I feel that many a times, women who are in the field of prostitution are there because they have no other choice, or that was where they were led to, maybe because of their financial situation, or maybe they have a history of sexual abuse. And so it is not something that I agree with personally, and I don't agree with the fact that it should be legalized, because it demoralizes women at large. And it also constitutes to the fact that we're promoting the culture of sex, especially on younger women. And so I don't think that the best route for us to go is to legalize prostitution, especially in our neighborhood. You know, there is prostitution that's happening very openly, especially on the strip underneath Roosevelt, the subway. And, you know, it happens, you know, you can walk by, you can drive by, and it, you know, it's happening quite openly. And it's also causing, men to view women as, sexual objects. And I don't think that we should be promoting that culture. And so I definitely do not agree with this newfound interest in legalization of prostitution.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Fatima. Thank you. Thank you for your response. Okay, so the same question goes to the next candidate, sir. Can you tell us your take on that? Thank you. You're muted. Unmute yourself. Thank you.
Yes, I disagree with the legalization of prostitution. In Roosevelt Avenue in our district, there are already some activities going on that are being objected by the local residents. I do respect people's right to have a personal life, to cohabit or mingle with whosoever they want. I just don't want it commercialized. Imagine you live in a building, you spend 15, 20 years working hard, you bought an apartment, you have family, and next to your apartment, somebody rents that apartment and start commercializing sex work. So we have to think it thorough. And if it also points out our weakness as a government, that government hasn't fostered the environment where young women or males, they could have other employment. So we have to focus on root cause of why people end up doing this type of work than just blindly doing legalization. That's very extreme and a nuclear option that we don't need right now.
Okay, that's.
Thank you.
All right. So that is, do you have another question, or Olivia, do you have a question before we?
No, I will come back to my other question. Let everyone else ask the
Okay.
question. Yeah. So Olivia can go.
Okay, my question is on domestic violence, and also the social welfare, the way they snatch children from families. Now, I want to hear your take, both of you. When it comes to domestic violence towards women, what is your take on the women protecting the abuser by, now wanting to go forward with their, claiming the incident at the police, making a case out of it, rather reporting the abuser? What is your intake on that? Because many times women who are in these situations, they are also mentally brainwashed to a certain level where they feel like things are going to be fine, so they can stay in a relationship. In many cases, they end up being killed in the end, because these reports keep coming in and out. She keeps changing her mind back and forth. How can we better protect those victims? And the other question is on the children, whereby a mother or a father is the abuser, beating their kids up. Now, the only solution as of today is to take the kids from the family. How can we implement other ways and not separate these families, but provide some other type of solution. So I want to hear your take on those two topics.
Okay, so Fatima, you go first.
Thank you for the question, Olivia. I believe that in a situation where there is domestic abuse, that is a very complicated situation, and it especially comes down to two individuals. And then in the case where a woman is in love, you know, she may not be thinking clearly, or she's being abused, and so she also may not be thinking clearly because of the trauma that she's facing. And so she may not want to see someone that she's in a romantic relationship going to jail for it. And so I think how we can combat this issue is when, you know, if the police were to find out about the situation, you know, we should have a situation where there should be a therapist or somebody involved in the middle where they can assess the situation and see, you know, what is going on, and talk to the woman about pressing charges where needed. And I think that, you know, in the case where women don't want to press charges, it's also about, you know, giving them clarity about, you know, what they're facing is abuse. A lot of times women don't realize that. And then going back to the second question that you asked regarding children getting separated from their parents, I've seen that happen, especially because, you know, in the immigrant community, you know, sometimes kids, you know, get beat up, and then their parents and the kids get separated. They go to school, they tell someone, and the kids get taken away from them. And I think that that's wrong. It's wrong to separate children and parents away from each other. I think that what you can do is really talk about, you know, this is not the culture in this part of the world to hit your child to discipline them. And so I think that there should be some kind of reconciliation process before you take a child away from their parents. Of course, in extreme cases, you would never want that to happen. You wouldn't want the kid to stay in an abusive environment, but I think that there should be an assessment process. There should be something that allows the family to sort of fix the mistake that is happening, because, you know, we all know that foster homes, people, you know, kids get abused there too. It's not like it doesn't happen there. And so we want to make sure that we don't separate families, especially immigrant families.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Fatima. Mr. Suraj, same question.
Yes, I mean, domestic violence is a very, very difficult subject to tackle with. I have been seeing it from very childhood, as my mother, who happens to be a teacher as well and financially independent, has been in a very stormy marriage with my dad. And I have seen as a child, as adult, and my mother even left my dad, but
It's okay.
I'm sorry.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that.
So,
But
It's a difficult topic, yeah.
and
yeah.
they are 74-year-old, and it's still happening. And they still live together, and best, even with our best efforts, I mean, I am powerless to do anything to make any changes. And my mother is financially independent, so it's not like she's dependent on my dad for anything. So I don't know how to solve this. It's up to people, it's up to family members, it's how people were brought up. The personally that some individual have certain personality type, how can we change that? So that's, I mean, as a government policy makers, I believe residence is a big issue for women. A lot of women can't leave their husbands or boyfriends. They may not be financially secure. So if we can provide faster, secure housing for them, at least physically distant, they may be able to think and recover and provide therapy. And that's same thing kind of happened in recent case of this young lady, that guy Brian Laundrie. They were on a van, they were going through the United States, and she ended up dead, and now he ended up dead too. So I mean, policymakers should have more people in those agencies who understand this and could physically separate it and not let it continue. That's one thing, and that's obvious. If they were separated when police was called, they were fighting with each other, and police or social services took a little more active role, stayed with the young lady, when both of them calmed down, maybe a situation was averted. So that's one thing I have seen firsthand, and that's I think government can do a little better job on that.
Yeah,
Thank you for that. Sorry about your situation. Thank you for a nice clarification on how you feel about it.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Suraj. As you can see, domestic violence is something that, we really have to find a way to address in New York City, in New York State. So it's incumbent on voters to make sure that when we elect representatives, we have to hold them accountable to make sure that issues that are the core of our values are front and center. So thank you for those. So let me ask a question before we go back to Dr. Eunice, our president. My question is to you, Fatima, and then Mr. Suraj will follow suit. What inspired you to run for city council? Because in everything that we do, we have to have a compelling reason, the why we are doing something, because I know that voters will really like to know. Fatima?
Thank you for the question, George. My reason for running for office is very deeply personal to me because of my experiences. Growing up, I started working at the age of 11 at my parents' restaurant, which is located right here in the district that I'm running from. And, I have experienced a lot growing up in this neighborhood, the diversity. And also, working at such a young age in that neighborhood, I realized that the immigrants in that neighborhood, or even the general public that lives there, their needs aren't being met, and we are very underserved. And so, when 37th Road, the road in front of my parents' restaurant and business was closed, we had a huge issue that was considered to be a gentrification agenda through the administration, because they had closed down a commercial roadway that was bringing in lots of vehicle traffic to 74th Street and 37th Avenue, especially to those small mom and pops that were running. And, most of them were minority owned. And so, through that process, I was able to work with elected officials, especially Daniel Drum, the former congressman. And I got to see the political framework at a very personal and deep level. And I saw where it had gaps that didn't fulfill the people's needs, especially the people who had elected these people. And really empowered the government in a way where we provide taxpayer dollars to them, and we vote these people in, and yet they are not able to serve our purposes where we live, And so in running for city council, my reason is that I am a person from the community, and I believe that I could better assist the community in solving their issues, because I understand and I know the pulse of the community, and I am part of the community, and I've always been here. And I recognize that government needs to have compassion as well. We need to be compassionate towards the people who elect us. We cannot turn a blind eye towards them, and we need to have community input in the decisions that we make for the people that we represent. I find that nowadays politicians have their own opinions, and regardless of whether voters agree with them or not, they're very stubborn on how and set in their ways. And so I think that it's important, regardless of whether you got elected with 3,500 votes or 20,000 votes, that you represent the whole electorate. It's very important. Every single voice matters, and you should be open to hearing it out. You shouldn't be making decisions based off of your personal biases or based off of the political insiders who have helped you get elected. Oftentimes that's the case. A lot of times candidates, they're guided by other politicians, by other lobbyists, special interest groups. And so that's what they end up representing, not the voters who have really put their heart and soul into the places where they live and the communities that they drive and motivate into becoming these prosperous societies for the future generations of the city.
Okay, all right, thank you, Fatima. Suraj, same question.
Yes, I mean, I grew up in North India in foothills of Himalayas, so I came here in the late 90s when Bill Clinton was president. But I have been following American politics from childhood. We used to get this magazine, Reader's Digest, so I'm well familiar since the times of Ronald Reagan. And past 20 years or so, I'm working for a woman-owned business, a small business providing environmental consulting, testing services to homeowners, building owners throughout New York City. And we also have contracts with city agencies like New York City Housing Authority, MTA, Disney, and so on. So over the years, I got tremendous experience dealing with city agencies as well as homeowners. And since I didn't grow up here, so I can see things in a different perspective. And the solutions provided by current political mindsets are hurting homeowners, small businesses, and nobody's listening. This has become almost like a dictator, like a communist one-party state. So there are a lot of solutions that could be done. There is a lot of waste of government funds by the city agencies, and elected officials just turn a blind eye, or maybe they themselves are financially literate. I have seen it firsthand. There are a lot of regulations that only hurt homeowners and small businesses. And there are some other different ideas that I want to bring to this city. For example, personal finance classes in high school so that students can make better financial choices, better equipped with them. Open city canteens and run it at a no profit, no loss basis where you can just walk up to get healthy food and pay a little amount. So that's why I have no choice to stand up and try to bring change to this city.
Okay, all right, thank you. So now we'll go back to Eunice, another round of questions.
Yeah, thank you, George. So my next question to both candidates. Okay, I would like to ask both of you just one more thing. I just want to know, what is your take on defund the police? Fatima, you go first, and then.
My stance on defunding the police is something that is already out there, but I don't mind reiterating. I do not believe in the phrase defund the police. I think it's hyper-inflammatory. It causes divide amongst not only our electorate, but people in our society. We are so divided to the point where we are only talking about defunding and not defunding, and we're not talking about the actual problems that the NYPD as an agency, as a city agency, is facing. And so, you know, definitely I agree with the fact that there are racial biases that must be taken into account, but I think that we can fix that issue by you know, recruiting more minority police officers into the NYPD so that, you know, the racial nuances are taken into account when, you know, people are interacting with the NYPD. The NYPD is one of the most, you know, we interact with that agency the most frequently on a day-to-day basis. And so I don't agree with that slogan, but what I will say is that we need to have funding that is adequate for the police department because, you know, to increase their training, to increase their mental health services so that their mental health is also taken into account. A lot of times, you know, police officers, you know, deal with very gruesome crime scenes, and it takes a toll on their mental health. They go through a lot to protect us. And so we need to make sure that their mental health is also taken into account, and we need to provide them with adequate mental health resources. And if we were to defund them, we would not be able to do that. We would have a very weakened immune system for safety throughout the city. And that is not a place where you want to raise kids. And that is not a place where you want to have your elderly live in, because, you know, it would be unsafe. And, you know, with the rise of hate crimes and the rise of robberies, especially on the trains, we want to make sure that, you know, kids, women, and children and elderly are secure. And you know, I think that in many ways, defunding the police also makes you know, women more susceptible to crimes and being subjected to violence, whether it be sexual harassment or just assault. And so as women, we know that, and we know that even when the police was not facing this type of brutal social attack, we were, you know, a lot of women get, you know, sexually harassed, and what do? You know, a lot of times nothing happens. And so I think by defunding the police, we are encouraging criminals to engage in criminal acts, and that is not a city that anybody wants to live in. And we need to make sure that public safety is one of our top concerns as elected officials.
Thank you, Fatima. Suraj?
Yes, I mean, my campaign slogan is kinder, safer city. So I do not agree with defund the police because I study finance too. Police has new NYPD has already been defunded $1 billion from budget last year, and City Council saw the effect, so they added 200 million back on this year's budget. And defund the police movement, where it started, is also has been refunded. I mean, reversed, whether it's Atlanta, Dallas, or California. But I do acknowledge everybody's right to live, and I am against police brutality. In Brooklyn or Bronx, there has been cases of no-knock warrants. Imagine you just sleeping in your bed, it's 3 a.m. and somebody just break down your door and march in, and a lot of time that has been a mistaken identity. So that has to stop. And I don't think police officers should get away with the lame excuse, I thought he was pulling a gun. So we do need more training. NYPD only has 6 months of training. That's very little compared to the rest of the world, especially when you're putting those officers where they're making decision life and death among their own. They are risking their own lives too. So I think we have to take a middle ground and have some accountability from NYPD, but defunding the police, if funding is issue, let's look at all other agencies. And also the candidates around the city who are championing defunding the police, saying, okay, we take money from police, we give it to social services. This is not a zero-sum game. You don't have to take money from police to fund social services. Department of Homeless Services wasted $800 million in contract. Nobody's blinking an eye. Same candidates have no problem receiving up to $250,000 or so from city in matching fund programs, and then they go out and defund the police. So funding is a financial issue dealt with differently. Police brutality accountability is separate issue and should be dealt accordingly. Nobody should be, gotten away with murder. So that's my take on that. And I want public safety for all of us. That's why my slogan is kinder, safer city.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Olivia, your next round of questions.
My next question is really on education. We realize that each day we're living today, technology is taking over. And with these old curriculums that's been in the process for so long, what is your take on bringing in more technology studies and focusing on the jobs that will probably be invented in the nearest future, rather than focusing on what it is today and it's going to disappear in 10 to 20 years from now? How can we better educate the upcoming generations, and how can we have better innovative ideas technological wise to assist them? Because a lot of jobs are going to be taken over by robots. We can't deny that. So we have to prepare the future better for our communities, our children, And of course, the other generations who suffer mostly from it if they don't get prepared by now. What's your intake on changing the curriculum?
Okay, Fatima?
I believe that that is a very interesting question, and it is definitely one that we should look into because, you know, as someone who graduated from college recently, I know that I wasn't exposed to all of the options that I could have gone into going into college. And sometimes I even realized that, you know, there are career opportunities for this hyper progressive career industry, which is, you know, going light years ahead of us, that I was never exposed to in high school in my public school education in New York City. And so I definitely agree with the fact that we should change the curriculum in a sense where we are offering a career class or a career development class where we are able to extract the newer jobs that the industries are developing or are being introduced, and expose the kids that are learning about these careers to what it is, what the job description is, and what skills it takes to be a person in that field. And so that would be something great. For instance, you know, we could even look at the curriculum of Ivy League universities or top private universities that have a high graduation rate, and see, or a higher yield of, you know, income after these people graduate, excuse me. And so we could see, you know, what careers are prospering, and you know, we could add that into the curriculum. I think that that would be something that is would benefit a lot of kids who don't want to go to college. And I think that the other way we could also look at this is, you know, by having vocational schools be government subsidized. A lot of times kids don't want to go to college. They want to pursue maybe electrical work, plumbing, or something that is not, or maybe sewing, or they want to become a seamstress or a tailor. And so we do not cater to these skills. In fact, you know, you would have to go into a private school, pay a lot of money for it to be exposed to that skill, to learn it. And so I think that in some aspects, we should focus on making vocational schools also government subsidized, because there is a lack of skilled workers, you know, in this city. And so we could add them into our economy by simply making it government subsidized, especially for low income students. And then of course, having this curriculum option would really revamp our education system. And lastly, you know, I think, you know, growing up in New York City, I wasn't exposed to any type of financial literacy education. And it was very hard learning that on my own. And so I do think that we should also add that into our public school education regardless, because financial literacy is a top need. And a lot of times, you know, we can ask for socialized policies, but if people don't know how to manage their, you know, we could have you know, a monthly check that goes to a family every single month, but if they don't know how to manage their money, they will never be able to prosper. And so that's why financial literacy is very, very important.
Oh, okay, thank you. In the interest of time, Mr. Suraj will just take this question and we're going to round up because we have to be done by 1 p.m.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, Mr. Suraj.
Well, I mean, yes, I have been working director of operations for a GLC Environmental the past 15 years. And so I have personal direct experience hiring young graduate and so on. And I find them very deficient when it comes to practical on the job work, technology, as well as, you know, personal attitude and so on. So as I said, starting personal finance classes have been my dream in high school. So I'm very, very enthusiastic about starting technology classes and giving students more hands-on experience and more skills. But the problem is our democratic run city, whatever we try to do, they come up with such requirement to get occupational licenses that is nearly impossible for a young student to start working on their own or even under somebody's supervision. For example, to become asbestos investigator, you are supposed to work 3 to 6 years under somebody who is already licensed to gain experience, and then city may or may not grant you license so that you can work. Electrician, plumber, same thing, 7.5 years of experience working under somebody. So a lot of them work without licenses. So first we have to tackle occupational licensing requirements. Otherwise we're providing education and skill to students, but they won't be able to work. And this city or federal government, they keep using word Green Deal or environment. I see it firsthand. I'm an environmental consultant. It's not easy for people to enter a trade. And finally, President Joe Biden have ordered FTC to look into occupational licensing requirement and get rid of unnecessary requirements. So we have to work on both fronts.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Suraj. So, Eunice, do you have to clear up some housekeeping?
Hello, yeah, okay, so I'd just like us to round up. Okay, George, you have any other question to ask?
Okay, all right, so let's this be like actually 2 minutes questions. One of the, as you can see, we are facing a lot of issues with crime in New York City, and public safety, like I said before, is at the front and center of the debate, and we need to do something to make sure that we live in a safe community. So what would be the #1 thing that you would like to propose if elected as a city council member? Fatima and then Suraj, just under 2 minutes.
I can take it. I can take it. She has been handling all the questions. So I would like to bring plaincloth anti-crime units that were disbanded by Mayor de Blasio under pressure from left-wing groups. So that's one thing we need to do. Of course, we have to find some grounds they don't violate people's civil rights, no more brutality and so on. But that's one thing that changed in past 2-3 years. And we have to stop no-knock warrants. And we need better leadership at NYPD and also at precinct level, at city council level.
Okay. We're saving the best for last. Fatima, you go.
Yeah, sure. So I think this is a great question because I want to bring something very new. It's my own program that I want to bring to New York City, and it is a municipal credit system that you would be able to take advantage of if you are a voter. And so what this means is a lot of times you ask a voter to vote and they will say, what do I gain out of voting? I feel like I go vote, I waste my time and my voice is not being heard. And so in order to combat this system where people feel like they're voiceless and people feel like they're not gaining anything out of voting, we can have a municipal crediting system where if you are a registered voter and you vote, you can get a certain amount of credit, for instance, to maybe pay off a parking ticket or any type of municipal fine or fee, whether it be a library fine or a, anything that the city agencies look over, a fine or a fee that you can then take advantage of using the fact that you are a diligent member of the community who is making sure that they do the right thing and vote. And I think that would increase voter turnout and make sure that people are more aware, when they're making a decision on who to elect. And also, if we just take, for example, jury duty, people get paid to do that. And so I think that if they're getting paid to, do their civic duty there, then they should be, somehow not rewarded, but in a way encouraged to vote, so that there isn't such a low turnout and elections are not swayed because of one small group who votes diligently compared to maybe an immigrant group which doesn't feel the need or the necessity to vote, or maybe they can't make it to the voting station because they don't see that it impacts their life in a direct way, or maybe they don't come from a culture that where voting is emphasized on. And so I think that it would really, help our city prosper and elect officials who are from our community And that is my plan. That is something that I came up with, and I think that it would be very effective. And then, going forward, as the years progress, you could become you could go from platinum voter to silver to gold, and become a voter who has your history as a voter would be something that you can leverage.
Okay. Thank you for that answer, Eunice.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I just want us to summarize real quick. And I thank all our team members for all their questions, Olivia, George, thank you guys so much for the amazing questions to the two candidates. And I just want us to round up. I want to thank the candidates for all your response. Thank you. Personally, I think that in terms of defund the police, we need safety, we need public safety. For me, I think defunding the police is not the case right here. I think we need to even fund the police, give them more money, because there's so many crimes going on, shooting, so we don't want to give criminals any opportunity to do any crime, so we need safety. So also in the case of domestic violence, I think just like Olivia mentioned, I think the government also needs to look into that, elected officials, because a lot of women died in the process, like going through all kinds of abuse from either boyfriend or husband, So I think they should know when to say, okay, when to report it. And then lastly, also the question I asked about the very first question I asked, I forgot, but I just want to say that, yeah, so all of you, thanks for your response. Thank you very much. And thank you. I don't know if any of our members have something to say in conclusion, so we can round up.
Yeah, since we have a few minutes, I would like to give these two candidates the opportunity to say, even if it's for a minute, to make a last-minute pitch to the voters why the voters should vote for them November 2nd. So let's go with Fatima.
Thank you, George. My name is Fatima Baryab. I am running as a Democrat running on the Diversity Party line, which is an independent opportunity ballot. And the reason I'm running in this way is because I believe that we should value all voices in government, whether they are Democrat, Republican, progressive, any other party, independent, and alike, because, at the end of the day, we're all New Yorkers. And while we believe in the democratic ideals, we should also be reflective of the fact that, this is not a one or two party system. This is a government that values all voices and all voters. And, that is what makes us beautiful, our diversity. And that's why I have chosen the Diversity Party line. And, we come from various ethnic backgrounds, religious backgrounds, whatever it may be, cultural, skin color, what makes us a beautiful, cohesive society is the fact that we embrace that diversity and we use common sense solutions to make sure that our city excels and we are able to make the American dream more accessible to every single person that lives here.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Fatima Baryab. And now, Suraj Jaswal.
Yes, once again, my name is Suraj Jaswal. I'm a Libertarian Party's candidate for City Council from District 25, Jackson Heights, Elmhurst. I'm a dad. I'm father of two boys, a community activist, and environmental consultant with 20 years of experience working with city agencies. Over the years, I have volunteered with various organizations, fought for sensible and comprehensive immigration reform, planted trees, and helped whosoever asked for my help using my own funds, skills, and time. Our politicians and established or party machine candidates continue to take on anti-common sense agenda like defund the police and creating an environment suitable for punks pimps, and prostitutes. Problems of our city are not going to be solved by the same political mindset who fostered this negative environment to begin with. So I have no choice, even though I have a comfortable life, secure job and career, I have no choice but to stand up to bring a fresh perspective and a different approach to city council. Safety and quality of life are my top priorities. I also want to start city canteens, run it at a no profit, no loss basis. I want to reduce occupational licensing requirements, and I want to bring a centrist and common sense approach to governing. So I'm here, as they say, in definition of insanity is to do same thing over and over again. So I'm humbly asking for my fellow voters and neighbors vote on November 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Suraj, Jaswal, and Fatima Baryab. On behalf of the New York political coalition, I want to appreciate your presence today. The voters are watching and have listened to your pitches. I mean, the neighborhood that you want to represent, Elmhurst and Jackson Heights, are the most diverse of any neighborhood in the United States. And right there, you also have the Elmhurst Hospital, which was the epicenter of the pandemic. So there's so much riding in your election, and we certainly hope that voters will look at your visions, your program, and your propositions, and also consider your stance on public safety, because those are the challenges that face us today. So on behalf of the New York Political Coalition, I would like to thank you all for coming, and then over to our president to close up. Over to you, Eunice.
Thank you, George. Thank you. Thank you, Olivia. Thank you, George. Thank you to our wonderful candidates. Thank you guys for coming today. But I just want to say one more thing, okay? Elected officials, like politicians, need to be very, very mindful, you know, because a lot of people always say, and they always complain that politicians will come, they will need you, organizations, the people. Then once they get what they want, they disappear, you know? So politicians need to be very, very mindful about that, because if they keep doing that, then if they come back again for support, no one is going to support them. So I just want to put that out there. Politicians need to be very, very mindful, you know? When people support you, especially organizations or the people, always appreciate them, you know? Be there for them when they call you or when they need you. It's very important. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Again, thank you guys for coming, our candidates.
Thank you, Fatima. Thank you, Suraj, you know. So
thank you, everyone. It was nice having this conversation.
You're welcome. Have a nice afternoon.
You too.
Bye.
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 And we're going to share the videos. Thank you. Bye-bye.